While watching James Gunn's Superman, I had this feeling that I've only felt a handful of times in my adult life. And James Gunn's ability to tap into this specific emotion that I had is what makes this movie wonderful. And this wonder that I'm talking about is the pure joy of seeing your superhero come to life, which that's what Superman does. It's when a movie can tap into this sensation, and specifically when a comic book movie can tap into this sensation, it's just pure happiness and bliss. And that's how I felt. I've only felt this a handful of times in my life. I literally counted every time that I've felt it in my life watching a superhero movie above the age of being like 13. It was the first time I saw The Dark Knight. It was seeing the Avengers movie in theaters in 2012. It was seeing Guardians of the Galaxy in theaters for the first time. It was seeing Into the Spider-Verse. And it was seeing Superman. I had that feeling watching Superman. And it's the cliche, I believe that a man can fly. That's what this movie did for me, and that's really special. So we're going to be talking about the greatness of Superman today. And we're also going to be critiquing some issues because this movie is not perfect. Oh, by the way, yeah, we're doing this. So let me talk about Superman, a movie that if I had to give a one-sentence review for, it would be Superman is imperfect, but I loved it. And there's a lot of unevenness in that. So let's dive into Superman, which for those of you who do not know, Superman follows Clark Kent, a few years into his years as Superman, whose reputation as hero is threatened by billionaire Lex Luthor. Now Superman, with the help of Lois Lane and his mischievous dog Krypto, must save the world with the help of some unlikely allies. And Superman also serves as this launch point for the new DC universe, spearheaded by James Gunn. Going into this movie, I had some trepidations for sure. I didn't love the trailers. I thought some of the scenes were poorly done with CGI. I found some of the scenes to feel very disjointed in the trailer. The humor wasn't necessarily clicking for me. So walking in, I was a little nervous for a movie that was probably my most anticipated of this year. And it quickly alleviated itself. I quickly felt comfort and joy in what this movie is and trying to achieve. And specifically, watching the trailer, I was like, my God, this movie's jam-packed. There's just so much in this. This is a movie that's supposed to be about Superman, that's called Superman, and yet we have Mr. Terrific in here. We have Metamorpho, we have Green Lantern, we have Hawkgirl, we have Rick Flag Sr., we have everyone else in this world of Superman in here. How are we going to get to Superman? And that was my huge fear going into this movie. One, this movie just like instantly puts you in the world of Superman. So much so that there is no pausing for this movie. You are just introduced to this Superman character and the world that he lives in. It's a really smart way to introduce this movie, which is we're not dealing with the origin. For anyone who had any trepidation that this was going to be an origin story, it's not that. And it makes it feel fresh and original in that way to just throw Superman into this story and have this world already established. And what I loved about it is it does also hit all the beats that a Superman movie, specifically the first one, needs to hit. You get Superman, you get Lois Lane, you get Lex Luthor, you get the Daily Planet, you get the Fortress of Solitude, you get all of that great stuff in it. This movie is actually able to keep its pace. And I think the reason it's able to do that is because all these supporting characters are in the world of Superman and they're existing within that context. They're not there to set up their own movie. This isn't like Nathan Fillion is in this movie as a Green Lantern to set up his own TV show. He is here because he has a specific role to serve within this movie of Superman. And what that allows is for these characters to be one of a dozen in this movie, all there to help the story of Superman and for us as an audience to better understand this character of Superman being introduced to us for the first time. And it's these characters that really establish the world of heroes that we're in. And it's a really smart way to be a launch point into this new universe without taking away attention. I think of like the Zack Snyder films, specifically like Batman versus Superman, where some of you might remember there's this scene where we are introduced to like 3 members of the Justice League via security cameras. And they do this just to introduce them to get them into Justice League, which is the next movie coming. Like, this movie doesn't do that. I'm really glad this movie doesn't do that. It really does focus on Superman, even when new characters or specific plot points that could be influential in later DC films are there. They're not the focus. Instead, we learn who Superman is by him being Superman on screen. And the supporting heroes explain the world around him and the greater DC universe. That also makes this approach very fast-paced, and I think that's going to be a criticism for some people. This movie moves at a frenetic speed. At 2 hours and 10 minutes, this movie never lets up. And I never found it confusing. Some people may find it confusing. I never did. Everyone gets an intro by doing, which I really appreciate about Superman, and what James Gunn's writing has actually always done quite well. We don't have to do this huge backstory for this character. We're able to just introduce Superman, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, whoever shows up in this movie, by them having an action, and that then informing us on who they are. This rapid approach of storytelling, though, is making this movie certainly feel quite busy. And I am not going to deny that Superman is quite busy. The reason this worked, though, for me, and the reason it worked to super effects, pun intended, is that the journey never loses Superman at the forefront, and it keeps it centered on his humanity. Every character intro is used for us, the audience, to better understand Superman. The genius of James Gunn's in the Guardians films, in Suicide Squad, and now in Superman is he understands the pace and energy of a comic book, and he brings it to life. I think he is the best director of comic book source material that we've ever had and probably will have for quite a while. He is able to bring this into live action and make it work such wonders. I reread the comic book All-Star Superman, which is a 2000s comic written by Grant Morrison that heavily inspires the tone of James Gunn's vision for this Superman movie and probably the DC universe as a whole. And what I found very interesting, and that I think this movie replicates very well, that All-Star Superman does, is we're just thrown into this world, and this world defines so much of who Superman is, and it's in the background, and the background / the visual language of comic book storytelling informs the world of DC in play in this comic, but it's all in the back. Like, it is still a Superman story at its center. I think so many modern comic book movies forget this point. I think so many modern comic book movies put the world building first and then the character second. Never for a second does Superman do that. And it's a great choice, and it's a smart choice, and it's the correct approach for building this universe. Yet the magic of James Gunn's delivery as a writer / director is nothing if the cast doesn't work. And luckily for us, I thought the cast worked wonderfully. I think everyone's so well cast in this movie, specifically the three most important actors, which are the establishing forces of the DC. And that is David Corenswet as Superman / Clark Kent. That is Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. And that is Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. This trio is great in this movie. Let's just talk about the most important performance in this movie, which is, of course, Corenswet, who plays our Clark Kent / Superman in this universe. And I was a little worried because I didn't know anything about this guy, and the stuff that I had seen him in, or even some of the interviews that he had been doing recently. I saw his CinemaCon stuff, and I thought he was super stiff. I was like, oh no, Superman can't be stiff. Like, this isn't going to be really fun. He gives a great performance in this movie, just straight up. And he puts the humanity at the forefront. He's such a natural talent in this movie. He is able to radiate kind-heartedness. He has this gentle giant quality to him. He's a character that can get frustrated and plays that. He is somebody that can feel pain. He is caring. He is also passive in fights. It's everything that he is able to do as an actor playing off other characters that makes him not a god and very approachable in this movie. He is simply a man trying to do his best, as we all are. And that makes him very relatable and empathetic as a character. Corenswet's able to channel all of that. And I think this movie is heavily inspired by the Richard Donner films of 1978 and Superman 2 as well. So this performance is very clearly inspired by Christopher Reeve. And he lives up to that legacy, and that's a tough legacy to do. And I think Corenswet does that naturally while making it his own. I really appreciate what Corenswet does in this movie, and he holds the screen excellently. This is a great Superman performance. This is just absolutely everything you could ask for. That's the same with the other performances. Rachel Brosnahan of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel fame, she, as Lois Lane, has to do two things and nail those two things very well. She has to be a badass journalist, and she has to have great romantic chemistry with Clark Kent. She delivers so hard in this movie. She is so excellently utilized within Superman. She's a natural at it. I love this performance from her. She gets awesome journalism moments. She gets awesome moments. She gets to be the badass at times in this movie. Not like she's transformed into a superhero, just how she goes and conducts her life. It's just awesome. She's so wonderful in this movie, and the chemistry's real. The first time you see these two characters interact as they're in their relationship, you're like, oh yeah, there's heat between these two. There is a passion in this. There's a scene like where we're basically introduced to them kissing right away. And you're like, yeah, they have that romantic chemistry. They seem like a real couple. They care about each other. There's an attraction felt here, and there is a real genuine love between these two characters that radiates off the screen. It's electric watching it. And let's talk about maybe my favorite performance in this movie, which is Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, somebody who's screen tested for Superman. I can't picture him as Superman, but let me tell you, as Lex Luthor, he's great. And listen, there's going to be some parallels that people are going to draw to this character, to real life situations. And I totally understand the inclination to do so, because this character is very Elon Musk / Jeff Bezos coded. This is a billionaire who thinks he is the smartest person in the room and wants to have total control over everything. And every issue that he has, he blames it on others. Immigrants are the cause of our issues, essentially kind of something that Lex is preaching in this movie. And it's just an intimidating performance. It's a selfish performance, I would call it, from Nicholas Hoult. Just like the way he's taking command, the way that he sees himself mightier than almighty. It's just a really arrogant performance that he's able to deliver on. And I think it's also just a very well captured realization of Lex Luthor, what he is about. He has the geniusness of a Lex Luthor that you have to buy. It just really worked to wonderful effects in this. You buy him as this character. And what I love about all three of these characters, and specifically, is we never need introductions to them. And I already kind of talked about it. They are just in this world, and they are not being introduced to each other. They've had their own kind of journeys together by the time we meet them. I mentioned the Lex Luthor politics of this movie, which is very heavy coded. And you've probably, if you've been on the internet, have heard some think pieces about Superman and what it means in the context of 2025, which is something I find quite fascinating. You may have seen the headlines, but the actor Dean Cain, who played Superman back in the 90s, went on one of these conservative media outlets and basically raged against this new Superman movie, calling it out for being woke, calling it out for being a story of immigrants, like getting the politics out of Superman. To Dean Cain, once again proving himself as one of the biggest idiots, you cannot detach Superman from the immigrant story, which is something that conservative media is trying to tell you is new to Superman. His story has always been political in the sense that he has always been an immigrant, and in the sense of who Superman has fought. Superman has fought the Klan before. This is not something new for Superman to stand on a certain side of beliefs. And the idea that he is an immigrant is something new is just baffling and so freaking stupid that when I saw this argument being made, it just kind of shows you the faux outrage that is being had in conservative media today. With that said, politics is something that I think this Superman really tries to touch on, but in ways that I found more subtle. If you have an allergy to the word politics, think of it as this. What does Superman stand for? And thematically, that is a huge weight of this movie. He is optimism in the face of cruelty. He believes we all have good in us. He is someone who comes to believe that we are who we choose to be. And that's a huge journey for this character to be. And yes, a lot of that is influenced by the immigrant story. And that is just the base concept of Superman since inception. He is from a foreign planet who must assimilate into America and make the world a better place due to his sacrifices, yet he gets constantly blamed for that. And there's this isolation, there's this loneliness feeling that he has being the last son of Krypton. That is so intentional to the source material. And there are other elements of this movie that I found inherently political in a way that I think, again, kind of informs why this movie exists within the context of 2025. And I think why it's also like a really refreshing movie to see. This movie is unashamed to be optimistic. And there is so much to be cynical in this world about, and yet Superman doesn't face that. And he stands up to oligarchs running amok. He stands up to people who are fear-mongering of immigrants like himself. He stands up to powerful countries invading Middle Eastern countries. At first, watching this movie, I was like, okay, the parallels to Israel and Gaza and the genocide going on and how Israel is conducting that genocide, it feels like very heavy-coded in this movie, but probably in a way that's not intentional. It's just history repeats itself. This story is kind of timeless. You watch the movie go along and you're like, oh, wait, maybe this movie is like trying to specifically make this point or comment on a situation and tragedy like this, like what is going on in Gaza. Again, if it's intentional or not, I don't know, but this movie certainly is going to give people that feeling watching this movie. And I think that's powerful. Again, it kind of talks about the timelessness and how so much of this is history repeating itself and why Superman has stood for what he stood for close to 100 years ago and why those themes are still resonant today. There are flaws within Superman. There were two really big ones that I noticed. One, some of the humor undercuts itself. I think this is kind of a constant issue that I have with James Gunn's movies. There are scenes that I noticed the joke takes away from a emotional moment. And it's very small and it's very few in between that it doesn't bother me. And the jokes all work in this movie. So like, it's not a huge deal, but I did notice myself having that gripe that I've had with other James Gunn's movies. The other one is there are a few moments of rough CGI. Specifically, there is this pocket universe that we learn about that's kind of a big part of the second act of this movie. Quite frankly, I thought this scene looked pretty bad, especially the ultimate fight sequence that happens in this pocket universe. Kind of just reminded me of a Minecraft movie. Like quite literally, that's what this world kind of looked like. And it just looks a little janky in a way that I kind of wish they had either rethought how they designed this world or done a little bit more to it to better improve the special effects. Besides that, I love this movie. And again, there are gripes to have, and there's probably more that I'm not thinking of right now. But ultimately, this movie delivered, and it made me feel like an 8-year-old child again. And that's powerful. Like, that feeling is why I love movies like this. And so few movies are able to tap into that. So the fact that James Gunn was able to tap into that, yeah, that makes me really excited to see what his universe will look like the next couple of years. And if this is what the quality we can expect from the DC universe, we're in great hands. So, one last thing, because I forgot to mention him. He is kind of a huge deal of this movie. Krypto the Superdog. Check out my popcorn bucket. This was another concern that I had with this movie, which was just like, oh my God, the trailers are so heavily relying on Krypto. Is this going to be a movie almost like Krypto and Superman's just kind of at the side? Krypto is a huge part of this movie for sure, and he has a lot of fun, memorable scenes in this. He is not the main focus of this movie. He is there to inform a few key scenes, and he is there certainly for comedic relief. It is a fun addition, but it never takes away from the movie. I thought it was just a great ad by James Gunn and a really smart one, and one that I just loved. It added a new flavor and layer to Superman that I really appreciated. And that's what I love. It's goofy that there is a superhero dog. It's goofy that this Superman character runs around in bright blue costumes with trunks and all that. Like, this movie isn't afraid to be kind of lame. And that's the magic of Superman. He understands, like, his appeal is him, what he represents, his hope, his aspirations, the wonder of him. And that's what James Gunn lands in. It feels very fresh in this movie. And I loved it about it. It's honestly one of my favorite movies of the year. And it's one of my favorite superhero movies of recent memory. I am going to give Superman 4.5 out of 5 stars. So thank you to everyone who subscribed to this video. I hope you all enjoyed this review. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for more. And also to everyone who is on TikTok, follow me on my TikTok channel. It is at Then Talks Films. We'll be talking a lot more films coming up, including some other big movies coming out soon, which I will be seeing in the next few days. So make sure to subscribe to this channel for more.